Dear councilors, I am pleased to nominate Cara, Krysil, the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I am enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. So welcome. And I'm going to start by calling on your witnesses. And so your first witness is the Honorable Karen Goldenberg. Welcome, welcome, Judge. How long has it been, Judge?
Less than 2 months.
Well, welcome back. How's it going?
It's going very well.
Well,
Massive learning curve.
I was proud to vote for you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about Cara Krysil, who I know very well as a lawyer. Cara Krysil, as you'll learn from her, or you know from her application, was an assistant district attorney from 2001 to 2013, and most of that time was spent practicing in the Lowell Superior Courts. During most of those years, was a staff lawyer with the Public Counsel Services in their Lowell Trial Court unit. And I was able to find some of my notes from that time, and I can see that Cara and I had at least 16 Superior Court cases together, which is a lot. So I feel like I'm in a good position to talk about her as a lawyer. I will say that whenever I had a new case, I most of the time got the case when it was still in district court and being reviewed for indictment. I was always pleased when I learned that my case was being assigned to ADA Krysil. I knew that she would review the allegations and evidence carefully and do further investigation before indicting. I had no concerns about her turning over discovery and exculpatory information. And we actually went to trial twice, and she was always well prepared, very pleasant to try a case against. And I don't remember us ever exchanging a crossword. I don't remember ever feeling frustrated by anything that Cara did at trial. She was always delightful. You learn a lot about a prosecutor from their sentencing recommendations. And looking back at my notes, I recalled that Cara did not play the usual game. And that game is the prosecutor asking for a very high sentence, defense lawyer asking for a very low sentence, and then the judge coming somewhere in the middle. When I reviewed the cases that we had together where my client was sentenced, it was striking how reasonable her recommendations were and really quite out of line with what her colleagues were recommending for similar crimes. And looking at the actual sentence imposed, it was very clear that the judges took her recommendations seriously. So I am confident based on that experience that Cara will be a great judge. And I say that based on her compassion, integrity, and courage. Her compassion really showed in her sentencing recommendations. She's very knowledgeable in mental illness and substance use disorders, which are prevalent among people who are charged with crimes. She has sadly seen the devastation of substance use disorders in her own family and is familiar with the cycles of relapse in the recovery process. And that is an invaluable understanding to have when sitting as a district court judge. And that compassion and understanding is among the reasons why I think she would be an excellent judge. I also want to talk about Cara's integrity and courage. I'm going to take everyone back about 18 years. Cara was fairly new to the Superior Courts. She had learned her craft in district court and juvenile court, and now was ready for the big leagues, but she was new. And around that time, a defense lawyer, not me, raised concerns about drugs being planted in his client's car by a confidential informant who then told the police that they would find drugs in that car. There are many reasons why such a concern would have been dismissed outright by most prosecutors. First of all, the source of the accusation is the client, someone charged with a serious drug crime based on this confidential informant's tip. But also in this case, what was unusual is that the weight of the drugs seized was quite high, which made the likelihood of the drugs being planted quite significantly less. But to Cara's credit, she is open-minded and agreed to have the drugs sent back to the state lab for purity testing, which would indicate how much of this substance was actual drugs and how much was cutting agent. And it came back that the drugs were very, very low in purity. And this information, along with Cara's independent investigation, led her to dismiss the case. And she alerted the police department that this was not a trustworthy informant. And that's impressive for any prosecutor. Obviously, it's what they should do. But I think it's particularly noteworthy that a young and junior prosecutor stuck her neck out and did the right thing. But Cara's integrity and courage didn't stop there. Years later, Cara was chief of the Lowell DA's office, and she received information from another law enforcement agent, a law enforcement agency about a confidential informant who was planting drugs and setting people up for arrest. And she quickly found out that the informant that they were speaking about was the same informant that Cara had dealt with over 5 years earlier. Cara investigated the matter. She saw that there were multiple cases involving this informant where drugs were found in the gas cap well of cars, which means that they could be accessed from someone outside of the car. Cara could not exclude the possibility that this CI had planted drugs, and she notified all the lawyers on these cases, and ultimately, under her leadership, 16 pending cases were dismissed and 2 convictions were vacated. So Cara is the kind of person I would want as a prosecutor, and she's also the kind of person that any lawyer would want on the bench in the district court. She has the ability to handle complex legal matters. She's a great trial lawyer, and that's going to come through in her role as a district court judge. She has that understanding of human frailty and vulnerability and how factors can contribute to criminality. And if a lawyer has concerns of some malfeasance, she will take those concerns seriously, just as she did as a assistant district attorney. So overall, I could not think of a better nominee for associate judge of the district court. And I hope that the council will confirm her nomination. I'll happily answer any questions.
Well, that's quite an honor for you to be here and representing her, and welcome back. What is there any case that you observed her that you could tell us about that really impressed you about her qualifications or her compassion?
One of the trials that we did together was an arson case where my client's young children were called to testify. That would not be permitted now, but was allowed then. And I thought she did such an exceptional job speaking to the children, making them feel comfortable. It was such an awkward situation. And I also saw that she had compassion on clients. There was a mental health component. And I admired the way she looked at that case, and ultimately the result was just.
So if you could give us one adjective of her greatest attribute that she's bringing to the bench.
I'll say compassion. It's every litigant or every, let's say, criminal defendant who comes into district court will have someone who looks carefully at mitigating evidence and looks beyond the crime in the person's record.
Yeah, that's important to me, and I've said it many times here that I wouldn't vote for anyone if they didn't have compassion. And when I met with the nominee, I saw that, and that impresses me. Because people are afraid when they go to court and they don't know what to expect. And if they can see someone who smiles at them and makes them feel welcome, that means a lot, you know? So it means a lot to have you. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, well, I'm hoping they'll come. Anyway, but your second witness is attorney, let me see, is, I got the wrong one. Attorney Ryan Sullivan, am I correct?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Slightly less honorable than the last. So I want to thank the council for taking the time to hear me.
No, I want to hear you, and I want to know what you know about this nominee. Witnesses are very important because that tells me what you observed about this person. And no, you're very important.
So we can agree to disagree as to whether I'm important, but I appreciate your. What I did want to, I hardly ever write down what I'm interested in saying. I'm a trial lawyer. I say things off the cuff every day, but this was important to me because it was important for me to convey the words and feelings that I have for Cara. I want to go off script for just a moment and echo everything that Judge Goldenberg had said, because I could not agree more. And I can say, as one of the prosecutors handling those cases that got dismissed in that second scandal involving the informants at the time under Cara's leadership, that it is not just Cara as the figurehead about what decisions were making that took place at that time. There was incredible pushback from the police department and many members of the district attorney's office arguing that the issue was not as large as it turned out to be. And Cara was steadfast and clear that she was going to make sure that the justice was done. And that was a really important moment in my life as a young prosecutor. And something that I thought about many times as a defense attorney since, about that need for a prosecutor to be better than just any other lawyer. And I think lawyers should be pretty good as it starts. And she really exemplifies that. Today, though, it's really my honor to speak on behalf of Cara's nomination for the judiciary, and I hope the council votes in favor. As I mentioned, I had the privilege of being mentored by Cara in my early years as a prosecutor. And through that experience, I was able to see firsthand the qualities that make her a remarkable candidate for this position. She possesses a rare combination of integrity, skill, and a deep commitment to justice. Qualities that, while I think are essential, are unfortunately not always common in the role of a prosecutor in Massachusetts. Cara embodies the highest standard of prosecutorial ethics. When faced with evidence of that police misconduct, she didn't hesitate to sidestep the issue. She confronted it directly. And it's not just that one example. There were other similar examples of things that had to be done that took courage and took a commitment to seeing justice. And she did that, and she set a powerful example for her team, underscoring that her professionalism is what we should try to uphold, because we need to uphold the truth. And that is one thing I could always say that Cara was in search of. She demonstrated to the young prosecutors under her guidance that you need to place justice above everything else. And I believe that she has done that throughout her entire career. Since leaving the district attorney's office, I've had the opportunity to watch skilled prosecutors. Some are diligent, fair-minded, others are not. Not one of those diligent and fair-minded prosecutors surpasses her in her trial skills, her ethical judgment, and that commitment to justice. Her approach to every case and challenge is unparalleled, in my opinion, not because she seeks recognition, but because the job for her is doing the right thing. And that's what I think all of our justices in the district and superior court should be doing. What could we ask more in a judge than what Cara embodies? And I would have to say that this council has confirmed many fine judges in the recent years, many of whom I've had the privilege to know and work alongside with in courts, one who was just sitting in the seat before me. Without hesitation, I can say that Cara was an outstanding addition to the Massachusetts judiciary. She brings not only professional experience, but a sense of and commitment that will serve our courts and our communities well. She is someone I admire professionally. She is someone I hope my daughter will strive to emulate personally. She is someone I recommend wholeheartedly. I'm confident she will bring wisdom, fairness, and a steadfast commitment to justice to the bench. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you tell us one case that you observed her in court that impressed you so much about her ability and her compassion?
Certainly, Commonwealth versus Yeen. It was a Superior Court trial in front of Judge Kenton Walker, I believe in 2012 or 13. I second sat Cara in that case. And when I say second sat, she did everything and I learned from her. What impressed me about that was there were some incredibly unexpected things that happened in that trial. Cara not only had the deftness of her skill and ability to respond to those unexpected things, but some of them I have seen at the time. I thought what she was doing is just what a prosecutor would do, not trying to gain the upper hand in order to win, but rather seeing the just result that should find itself. And what I've learned since is that that's not always the case. And I've seen many prosecutors faced with similar situations that would have handled it differently. And in my opinion, inferior to how Cara did. Her ability throughout every phase of the trial was unparalleled. And that's why I remembered off the top of my head.
Well, your testimony means a lot. It means a lot. Maybe you could stay right there. They might have some questions. Introduce the council, Councilor Ainella, and Councilor Duff, Councilor Kennedy, and Councilor Jacobs.
That looks familiar.
Do you have any questions? This is a attorney, Ryan Sullivan, and he's testifying for this nominee. Do any of you have questions of him?
I just nailed it.
Okay.
How you been?
Fantastic. How about yourself? I've been avoiding it.
We may have done a trial or two together over the years.
Yeah, we did.
But you don't have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. It was very meaningful. Is there anyone that would like to speak for this nominee? That's not in the list. Okay, is there anyone in opposition? Hearing none, it's your opportunity, your presentation to tell us about yourself.
Sure, thank you. I want to thank you and good afternoon to all the members of the Governor's Council. Thank you for taking the time today and over the past few weeks to evaluate my nomination for an Associate Justice of the District Court. Thank you to Governor Maura Healey and Lieutenant Governor Kimberly Driscoll for my nomination. I am humbled and honored. Thank you to Chief Legal Counsel Paige Scott Reed and Deputy Legal Counsel Dara Kesselheim and their staff for their professionalism and guidance throughout this process. Thank you to Valerie McCarthy and her staff for their assistance. I'd like to also thank the JNC for their hard work and fairness throughout this process. Finally, I'd like to thank my witnesses, my family, my colleagues, and friends, both here today and online for their support. Some of you have may heard the famous quote from Maya Angelou, "You can't really know where you're going until you know where you've been." While all of you are aware of my legal qualifications for a position on the district court, I would like to share some of the things in my personal life that have shaped me into the person that I am today. These are many things that some of my colleagues and acquaintances don't even know about me, but that I believe have equipped me to be a fair, kind, compassionate, and patient district court judge if confirmed. I was born in Fitchburg, Mass. My earliest memories of childhood were of just being cold. I remember being in our apartment with my mother and my older brother, Chris, and standing around our kitchen oven that we used to heat the apartment. My memories of those days were an empty refrigerator. I also remember the smell of alcohol coming from my father when he would come home in the middle of the night and sometimes start a fight with my mother. I remember one particular day when chaos consumed my home and I was being carried out as the police arrived. My drunken father had thrown a shoe and broken my mother's nose. Those were the early days of my life. I knew hard work and resilience from my mother, but I also knew at a very young age, alcoholism and domestic violence. On August 4th, 1990, my life changed. I recall that morning, my mother came into my room and told me that my father had died. My father died in a tragic car crash. I was 16 years old and my brother was 18. I started my junior year of high school and met my first boyfriend within 4 months of my father's tragic death. Just before my 17th birthday, I learned that I was pregnant. I had family support in any decision that I made, but the decision was mine alone. My son, Tom, was born on January 23rd, 1992. Later that year, my favorite uncle, who I named my son after, Tom, died of a drug overdose. This was in 1992. Overdoses were rare and they were stigmatized. This was my family's first experience with a drug overdose and the second tragedy my family had faced with substance use. I spent the next 18 years devoting all of my time to raising my son and furthering my education and career. In those 18 years, I faced the stigma of being a young, single parent regularly. Many of my personal and professional challenges that I faced in my life, to include bias and inequity, have provided me with an infallible appreciation of impartiality and fairness that I would bring with me to the district court if confirmed. While I was raising a child, working, and attending college and law school, my brother had struggled after the trauma of my father's death. By his mid-20s, my brother had several accidents, one involving a compound fracture and one involving, at least one of them, a car accident that left us as his family believing he had a massive untreated head injury, not understanding in the late 1990s the impact of opioid prescribing. What we thought was a head injury was hidden substance use. I remember navigating rehab facilities and treatment plans with my brother. I also remember during that time attending court hearings and wishing deep down that somebody in that courtroom would recognize his condition and help. That they would ask why at 26 years old he became court involved, what he was doing with his life, and maybe even why he appeared under the influence in court. But the district court was like a machine and he was just another user moving through the system. The process was impersonal and dispassionate. If appointed to the district court, I would be steadfast in not allowing young adults like my brother Chris to slip in and out of my courtroom without asking questions. Chris died in the fall of 2000. My brother died from a heroin overdose. I know what substance use does to a family. I have seen it and I have experienced it. I began my legal career in March of 2001. For the 24 years since my brother's death, I've had some incredibly amazing and proud moments. I have a wonderful home and family and a successful career. I take none of this for granted. In March of 2023, my uncle died of a fentanyl overdose. My uncle died as I was working for the DEA. There are no bounds to this crisis. My family has endured loss from substance use for 34 years. I share this personal narrative with you to demonstrate that these lived experiences, while extraordinarily difficult, have provided me with a perspective that has equipped me to make better decisions and empathize with the adversity that many of those that come before the district court face. I know where I have been, and I will carry these life experiences with me. I unfortunately know what it means to suffer from mental health disorders, financial strain, alcoholism, and substance use disorder. but I'm also prepared with the background to know the dynamics of these issues and the resources or lack thereof that are available. Quite simply, I will not forget where I came from. Thank you for your time today and over the past few weeks. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Before I call on the councilors to question you, why don't you introduce everyone that's here for you?
Sure. My husband, Orlando Torella, who without his encouragement, I probably wouldn't be here today. He encouraged me to apply. My daughter Amelia, who's a 4th grader. My mother, Mary Foley. My daughter-in-law, Molly McNamara Krysil. My son, Tom Krysil. My coworker, who came all the way from Connecticut, David Lanzoni. My friend, Christina Ronan. We've met Attorney Ryan Sullivan. And we also have, you've met Judge Goldberg, and then my good friend and former colleague, Gina Kwan. There's also 4 people that mean a lot to me that are not here today. My stepfather, Pete Foley, who is watching on the live stream. My stepchildren, Luca and Sabrina Torella, who will watch the live stream, I'm sure, when they get home from school. And my grandson, Christopher, who's at daycare.
So there's no one, is there anyone in opposition? Having said that, I made me cry when I met you, and I'm crying now. And I usually speak last, which is the way it should be as the chair. But I have to tell you, you are such a role model for so many women out there. You have a wonderful family, you have a wonderful son and daughter-in-law and grandson, and your mother and everything. It's remarkable that you did it, and with all of that. And you know, we talked about drugs, and I have 2 friends who lost sons, drug overdose. They were good people, just like your brother. They're not, you know, they're not criminals. And we haven't won, far from winning the war on drugs. So you've been very involved in that. So tell us your experience in your position. What have you seen and what have you done, and how is it improving? Is it getting better?
I unfortunately don't think it's improving. I think there's just new ways that drugs are being introduced into our community. You know, in the past it was sort of powders and needles, and you thought of things like that. Unfortunately, it's fake prescription pills. So, you know, at the DEA, we do a lot of work with, you know, prescriptions, diversion, regulatory work for legitimate pills. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are able to make pills that look just like they're real. So I think that's a big concern for our young folks.
Well, I'm a facilitator and I don't go first, and so I'm going to call on Chris Iannello.
Thank you very much,
Okay. Oh, excuse me, Chris. Counselor has to leave. She has an emergency. Would you mind if I called her out of order?
No problem whatsoever.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor.
Thank you, Chris. And I won't take it long. We had a really good meeting. I really thank you for coming out. It was really great to be able to sit down and chat with you, and your life really has been a remarkable testament to your strength and determination and overcoming really incredible challenges to really achieve at a remarkable level. And so I just want to give space to just give you all that you deserve in terms of just recognizing that. And I told you when I was reading your application, until I got to your life story at the end, it's very, well, first off, an entire career on the prosecutor side. So it was like giving you a little bit of a side eye as I was reading about whether or not you would be able to relate to, you know, what comes through at the district court level, the kinds of life struggles that are kind of the constant process of doing business at the district court. By the time I was done reading your application, I was like shelving all of my original clearly incorrect assumptions about you and what your values and viewpoints might be. But I want to give you a little more space here to talk about at district court, and given the kinds of domestic violence and substance abuse and mental health and family challenges and the kinds of things that do really come through at a steady pace to district court. From your perspective, because you really talk in here a little bit about diversionary things or ways in which to be that moment that can send someone on a better path, a better trajectory, the work that one can do on the bench and resources one can bring to bear. And I just wanted to give you time to talk about that.
Thank you. One of the main reasons I applied for the district court and not the superior court was that I think the district court has a real opportunity to change the trajectory of somebody's life. One of the things that I would like, if confirmed, to bring is more individualized sentencing. I feel like sometimes we have certain programs that we send people to or recommend certain dispositions, and we don't really know what the underlying issues are that brought them into the court. I'd be relying somewhat on the attorneys in front of me to give me that information, but what I would want to do as a district court judge is try to formulate some sort of disposition that would actually address the actual issue, and not just, send somebody to a certain program that they didn't want to go to, they don't fit in, it's a waste of time and money, and they're gonna be back in court. Like, let's try to the extent we can, see the whole person, see what the underlying issues are, and craft something unique to that person.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's a level of understanding who the individual before you is that takes some time. And so to that point, again, with the district court, the way that the business is run, it's very stacked schedule, lots of cases coming through rapidly. Having that ability to really connect on an individual level seems like quite a challenge. So I'm just curious your thoughts about how you can be efficient and effective, but also bring that level of personalized understanding, like see the human before you in the way
I
you're
appreciate that
describing.
question. And I think we talked about it. I have some ideas about how to move things along. One of my pet peeves, I guess you could say, is having people sit in a district court just for a new date when they could be working or looking for a job or making more valuable use of their time. My whole life, like, time means something, and I'm gonna get done as everything that I can. So I think if we can spend less time on the routine matters that can just get another date and clear out the courtroom, and then I would be able to spend more time on things like getting to know somebody in these positions. I think there's hopefully some ways, in my head, there's some ways that we can fix that.
I appreciate that. I hope you are able to bring that kind of a both a quickening of the pace about the really routine stuff to be able to slow down to see the human involved and what benefits you could bring. I'm not going to ask any more questions. I will just reiterate how impressed I am by you, your history, your achievements, both from a career and a personal standpoint, and how much I really enjoyed getting to know you and talk to you about so many different things. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Councilor Ainella. Thank you again for letting me go first.
Councilor Ainella.
Thank you. You've gone through a lot. You're doing great. You're doing great. We had a nice conversation. I really enjoyed it.
They won the game.
That's my first question. You won the game. Congratulations. I was driving and Cara, I hear all this noise in the background around you. It was all that hockey game. It was good. It was great. Let's assume you're confirmed by the council. And now you have someone come before you, what we found guilty. And what's your thoughts about rehabilitation as opposed to incarceration? Say it's a drug situation, it could be a BD, but because of drugs. And we've gone through a lot. Where do you come from in a situation like that? You guys say, DA's looking for a year and a half in the House of Corrections. Do you say, That's not gonna help the guy, but look, where do you come on?
So I think I would have to look at all the factors, including the criminal record. But I can tell you, I applied for the district court and not the superior court. Because I feel like by the time you get to superior court, it's probably time based on the crime or your criminal history to do a little time in jail. I think district court should be more focused on rehabilitation. So to the extent, there was no public safety issue, the criminal record was nonviolent. I would look for a way to, and maybe a suspended sentence or something like that to have some sort of deterrent effect, but I would look for a way to what led this person to commit a beating.
On that same token, now you have someone before you. And I don't do criminal law, so if I'm saying it wrong, bear with me. A probation matter, probation surrender. And the probation department says, this person got, 6 months probation, they violated the terms, they gave, we'll say he in this one, they gave him urine test and he flunked. So we think he should be sent to the House of Corrections for 6 months. Where are you on that? Get a little different, this is a probation surrender. The judge gave him a break, the first go around, he violated the terms of probation, failed the urine test.
I'm going to assume that it's a nonviolent offender and it's just a failed urine screen. Drug recovery, drug treatment is not linear. I would maybe do an increased sanction, maybe report, to see what the program is. Maybe they need more check-ins at the program. Maybe they need to be, more urine screens. I would figure out what their participation is at the program. I wouldn't automatically violate somebody based on a drug offense like that, as you point out.
Because in order to succeed, whether it's drugs or alcohol, I'm clearly no expert, you're gonna fail on the way. In order to succeed, you're gonna have some failures. And if these judges just throw them in prison, they're gonna come out and like a revolving door. But I'm glad to hear that. Your experience, if any, what are the resources? Is there, these people who have an alcohol or drug problem, what are the resources once they're in prison?
So I'm not aware of every resource in prison. That's something that I would like to explore. I think I was talking to Counselor Jacobs about it. If I got confirmed, I would like to explore and see, if I have to send somebody to the House of Correction, what's there? Where are they going to be? Are there programs? Are they going to be in the general population? Because what I don't want to do is exactly what you said and just make it a revolving door that they go and they maybe come out worse.
That's good. There's a big disparity amongst judges. We talked about this. There's a court appearance. Some judges, no matter what it is, want you to come in person. Some other judges say, no, if it's, if it's agreed upon, whatever between both parties, you don't have to come into court. Childcare issues is a big thing. I mean, it's expensive, childcare. And even though you may not have a childcare issue, the fact of the matter is that the attorney has to go to court, that's gonna cost the client more money, because the lawyer's not gonna go into court for nothing. What would your thoughts?
I am 100% for efficiency. If there's something we can get done without bringing the parties into court, we should be doing it. Like I said earlier, I don't want people missing work. I don't want people just for a routine date if there's no issue with defaulting. So on a routine request for a continuance that's agreed upon, I would be inclined not to bring people into.
Now you're in the, I could be wrong, this, the Lowell area, Lowell, is it?
Where I live,
Yes.
yes.
I can tell you this, I get a lot of complaints about the Lowell District Court. On the civil side, the judges, I don't know who they are, make you come in. I mean, and last time I checked, you can't get fired, okay? The chief judge can't fire you. So what are you gonna do if you're in Lowell District Court and the chief says, I want everyone to come in, I'm in charge here, I want these clients to come in, I don't care what it is. What are you gonna do? You gonna follow the chief? Are you gonna stand alone and say, hey, this is what I think is the right thing to do?
I'd start with a conversation with the chief about what the reasoning for, and see if we can.
I'll be the chief, you know what, I just feel like, look, lawyers, they should be doing this by the TV, I'm just saying the TV, it's not the TV. But I wanted to come in, lawyers, traditionally used to come into court, I don't like this Zoom situation, you know, WebEx, I don't like that, I want just to come in, that's what I wanna do here. You should know that.
I would have probably talked to my colleagues and see, you know, if I went against the grain. I would get moved to Western Mass or.
But I do hear Lowell is a better one. And the judicial court, when I mean a bad one, those judges are tough, they want you to come in all the time. Again, I'm talking about civil cases. Again, what are you gonna do if you're in the Lowell district court, and I could pick any court, you're in the so-and-so district court, and you have a case before you, it's been on 3 or 4 times, and the time before the judge says, no further continuances. And now the lawyer comes before you, wow, whatever you decide, and wants a continuance. Because the judge before you, last month said no further continuance, what are you gonna do?
I'd have to see what the reason.
Okay, I'll make it easy for you. He's got another matter on, he just got hired, he just got, someone got arrested, this case is on Monday, and he got, a client got arrested, and he's gotta be in doubt. Gotta be there, and now he's got your case in Lowell.
In that situation, I might have a conversation that maybe you shouldn't have taken that matter if you were already had a trial.
Can I say something? Can I be really honest with you, Judge? You're not gonna say, come to the side part, yeah. You know how many months behind in rent I am? You know what I had to do for, my secretary hasn't got paid in 3 months. I'm 1 month behind with the mortgage. And I'm gonna be totally honest with you, because I'm retiring next month. You know what? You don't have to worry about that, because you've been on the public payroll all the time. Guess what? People like me, it's damn tough out there. Now, again, obviously exaggerating. She's not gonna say to you that, but yeah. I don't do criminal work, but I can just imagine. You know, it's tough to pay the rent, it's tough to pay the secretary, the electric bill, the gas. It's tough out there, you know what groceries cost, gas costs, and you're telling this guy you shouldn't have taken that case? He's going back and he's calling me Kennedy, are you kidding me? Did you hear what she said?
Well,
I'm so far behind, are you kidding me?
I didn't finish.
Okay.
I would give you, I would say that, and then I would say, well, can we start the case tomorrow? And maybe give you a shorter continuance so you can deal with your matter and then come start without, you know, a 3-month continuance, like, let's try to just delay it by a day.
I always say this, what's the big deal with continuance? What's your thoughts? Like, somebody wants the 3 months, or the DA wants the 3 months, who cares? I mean, what's the real reason, if a case is continued for 2 months, and it's been going on for 1.5 years? There's other cases, not the only case, you're not gonna get bored.
I think it depends on what type of case it is. I mean, if there's big.
It's not a case, it's an automobile accident. I know you don't do that. A guy got injured 3.5 years ago. He broke his leg. So you've been waiting for 3.5 years to go to trial. That's what his lawyer says. I like a 3 months continuance. Okay, I'm just curious, myself, like, why do you care? Are you worried about the pressure you're gonna get from the chief again? Because they wanna move cases.
Yeah, I think it would be just an individual case by case. It's hard to, I mean, I could tell you, my inclination would be an attorney, you know, needs a break, they're tired, they have something going on at home. Attorney wellness is a real issue. I would be inclined to give a continuance. If it was somebody that comes in and just really doesn't want to try the case and keeps pushing it along, I might look at it differently. I wouldn't be on the bench to make people's lives miserable in that regard. I would hope I would be fair and consider all the factors.
Yeah. If these people are asked for continuance, I don't think you have any option. Social Security matter, because that's a federal matter. And I know you don't do Social Security. But if somebody says, hey, I got a social security case tomorrow, I can't come in. And I have one Tuesday, I don't think you have an option to not grant a continuance, but you don't take. Well, I can even tell you, we do social security nationwide, and we have asked for continuance. It's not very, very good. Really, because now all cases are on the telephone. They used to be in person. And we probably have like 10 continuances over the years. They always grant it. You don't have that option because it's the federal system. Excuse me. Will always give deference to the federal court. We probably never have. It's just a key. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't have any questions. I mean, like I said, we've gone through a lot. We get the kids here. It's a big day. Mother. We had a nice conversation. You can count on me when the vote comes out next week or the week after. I wish you the very, very best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Inell. Counselor Duff.
Thank you. Enjoyed very much speaking with you. What do you think the biggest challenge the district courts are facing right now?
So I think the biggest challenge continues to be substance use and mental health conditions. I think one of the challenges is the volume and being able to individually handle all the cases and giving them the attention that you can. And probably matching resources for individuals. You know, I don't think there's a one size fits all for either of those conditions. So trying to navigate and find the appropriate, placement for individuals, I think is difficult.
How do you think you would go about finding placements, finding beds? Because we don't seem to have enough. And, a few years back, everyone was pounding their chests and crying and, it was heroin and fentanyl. It was the du jour issue of the day and everyone was on board with it. But it just seems to have, as things happen, it's faded. And to me, no. Some has changed. I think public ideas and perceptions have changed, but funding hasn't changed dramatically. And what do you think about that?
I think I would
find resources. Do they exist?
I think we need to rely on the community, and I think, go out to the community and talk to people, talk to programs, just explore. I also think that, with the internet and like new unique ways, everyone doesn't have to go to a place. Some people do better on an online program, individualized counseling. I don't think we need to think of the traditional, you need to check into a program in person. There's so many, at least for alcohol use, there's so many programs that can be anonymous. There's Zoom hearings. It's sometimes easier for people to get those resources not being in person. So I think just, be open to other ideas other than the traditional, you check in at a meeting.
I think that's a great idea, because as you and I discussed, I believe in big crazy idea. Not that that is a big crazy idea, but I believe in trying things that haven't been tried, because we have to try everything we can. But my concern is, how do you as a judge find those things?
I think that is, anything I come up with on my own, just for being out and about in the community, but I think relying heavily on the probation department. But, working together with them, like, I'm happy to sit down, like, look into what's out there. There's a lot out there, that maybe is untapped that we should.
Like to sit, what area?
I would like to be, well, I believe.
We were involved.
It sounds like Lowell Civil Section. I would like to be close to where I live, because I like the community aspect of courts, and engaging the community with programs. I think it was you, I talked about, like, I think wellness is a big part of recovery. And there's, yoga studios and other exercise facilities that, do sober classes. And I just would like to be able to rely on the community for some of those resources.
I totally agree with you, but my concern, and this is not an attack on you, please don't take it this way at all. My concern is who's paying for it. Because the public doesn't have the stomach. Literally after last week, they're really not gonna have the stomach to pay for addicts. Because in my work with addiction, and I talked to you a little bit more in depth about the work I've done with addicts. People do believe they're expendable. And I think that attitude has changed quite a bit, as it should. But people don't want to fund it, so who's gonna pay for the wellness program?
Well, I mean, we also, put people on supervised probation, they're paying fees, we're putting them in programs, sometimes they have to pay fees, I mean, you could move those resources around. I also think you can find programs in the community that are free to attend.
Yeah.
So I think there's, again, unique ways that we maybe are spending or having people pay in ways they don't need to. Maybe they don't need check-ins. Maybe we need some sort of informal unsupervised probation, and then they would have the money to pay on their own.
No, I think this isn't a getcha thing at all. I'm very curious about it, because I think we're just, particularly, I think in this state, I think we're gonna be facing some very critical financial issues, particularly with the new administration coming into Washington. I mean, we're not gonna get what we need. No one probably is, but we're really not gonna get. And so the challenges that our court system is going to face are going to be really monumental. It's something we haven't seen probably in 30 or 40 years. And I'm glad that you're thinking about it, because that's what I'm looking for. I'm really trying to pull answers out of you of how do we in community solve some of these problems, because the government's not going to be able to solve them. They're not going to be able to fund them. And people can say they can, but, in the last year, I think of, what did the legislature pass, 4.5% of the bills? I mean, that's like, anyone would get fired for that. That's absurd. And I don't think it's just that the legislators themselves don't want to do the work, but if you don't have the leadership that's letting you do your job, it's pretty hard to do your job. I think it's abundantly clear that there's a problem there. Anyway, I think you have a lot to bring to the bench. I'm excited that you applied. Thank you for everything. And I have no further questions.
Councilor Kennedy.
First of all, I want to say that your family should be very, very proud of you. The odds of becoming a judge in Massachusetts are percentages are a lot less than the percentages to get into Harvard. That you made.
My daughter-in-law
Yeah.
attends Harvard Business School.
Do they know? Did they find my application yet? Do they know that at home they're gonna have to call you Your Honor from now on?
We talked about it.
We have obviously known each other for a long time. What year did you start?
2001.
2001, so that's a long time. You beat me up many, many times in court. But you wish you gave me that cough now. Just saying. I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions that are important to me, because I spent a lot of time in the district courts. And I think that there's certain aspects of it that things just aren't going right. And one of the biggest ones that I have, one of my biggest beefs is 58As. Probably one of the most overused motions by prosecutors that are out there. And they don't realize the impact that it has on people. I not too long ago represented a woman who was in her 50s who got no record. She actually worked for a lawyer. Who got in an argument with her daughter about cleaning her room, and it turned into a shoving match. Can you imagine a daughter fighting with her mother? No, me either. But anyway, and she called the police. It wasn't a big deal thing, certainly. The prosecutor filed a 58A on it, and she was held from Thursday till Monday when I came in. This is a woman who should never be near a gym cell, ever. And it was probably one of the most traumatic and horrifying experience she ever had. And when I went to the court, when I appeared on Monday, We made a deal for her to get out, and the DA looked at me, who filed that motion, says, oh, this will probably be dismissed later, or continue to start a finding if it's not. Why are we holding people for 5 days in jail for that? That shouldn't be there.
I think that's a concern.
It's more than a concern.
I think, you know, you hold somebody up to 3 days. I think the reality is that in that situation, there should be a hearing probably the same day.
There's absolutely no reason to wait 3 days. There's no reason at all. And they, as you know, they have to show good cause to get that continuance. But judges, when and it happens over and over and over, the DA files the motion, well, they want 3 days, I gotta give it to them, they're held. That's what happens. They don't even think about it. You know, when the witness could be sitting in the courtroom that they need at that time, or a phone call away. If they don't even bring the witness in on 3 days later, or over a week and 4 or 5 days later, they go forward on the papers. You've seen that.
Yeah.
You've probably done it.
I probably have.
Okay, and it just blows my mind that people will never go to jail for the charge, even if they go to a jury trial, get convicted. They're not gonna get a jail sentence, that they're spending 3, 4, 5, sometimes 7 days in jail, waiting to be in front of a judge to get let out. What are you gonna do about that?
I'm gonna look at the facts of the case and see why we can't
The
proceed.
facts of the case are easy, the one I just gave you, what do you?
I'm gonna say, why can't we proceed today? Why can't we proceed for a 2 o'clock call? Why can't we proceed the same day?
Are you gonna put the feet to their fire, to the prosecutor's fire, saying, we're doing this at 2, you don't have your witness here, if you don't have your evidence here, I'm letting her out.
Within reason, yes. I mean, if
I
there's.
don't know what that means within
If the
reason.
person is in the hospital or they can't get their witness there,
Well, that might be a different case. But we started by saying you have to show good cause, okay? That would be good cause.
That would be good.
That would be good cause, but 9 out of 10 times, there's no good cause. And we're just throwing people in a cage for 3, 4, 5 days that would never be in there on cases that are probably gonna get dismissed most of the time, you know, in situations like I described. So that's my question, you're gonna put their feet to the fire and not give them their 3 days.
I'm gonna look at all the circumstances. My feeling is that we could have the hearing sooner
I
than.
just gave you one circumstance, what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna say, can we have a 2 o'clock call? We'll do the hearing today.
Right, they show up at 2 o'clock, they're not ready, what are you gonna do?
I'm
We need the
probably,
3 days, Judge. We couldn't get a hold of her, we tried to call her,
no criminal history.
no history.
I mean, given those facts, it sounds like there's a, would be reasonable to set some conditions and bail. It's gonna be
We're
fact.
not ready, Judge, we can't go forward with the hearing right now.
It's gonna be fact specific. On the facts you're giving me, no criminal history, the witness is there, and they don't wanna go forward.
All right, now we get a little criminal history. 10 years ago, she had an assault and battery charge.
The same victim?
No, different victim.
Dismissed, what's the, I have so many questions. Criminal
I
history,
think I'm supposed to ask the question. You have to do it later. When you have the robe on.
I very much understand what you're saying, and it would not be my inclination to hold somebody in that situation for 3 days or 5 days. There are ways to have a hearing sooner, and I would be inclined to either hold a hearing that day or make a decision based on the papers.
Restraining orders. They give them out like candy. Right? Not many of them are denied, right?
I'll take your word for it.
You were there, you've seen it.
I think, depending on, again, very fact specific, but
I agree, but not many of them are denied. You would agree with me that a lot more of them should be denied than are.
I've never sat in a position to make a decision on a restraining order, so I don't think I can answer that.
Well, how are you gonna be able to do that if you've never like been involved in one? How are you gonna figure that
Well,
out?
I've seen them, but I've never been the decision maker.
Listen, we've all been tortured, sitting in court, waiting for them to get through with that so we can get our case called, right? So you've watched a ton of them, right? Do you think that's a process that is overused and overabused and that too many are given out?
I think it has the potential for abuse, and I certainly recognize the implication on both parties. And I understand that, you know, there's certain jobs that you need a firearm to maintain your job. So I think my inclination would be to have a two-party hearing. If it can't be done, I don't think I would routinely issue restraining orders for 7 days. I would do it maybe for 24 hours or a shorter period of time until I can hear from both parties, because I do recognize the implications, and I think there is the potential for abuse. Not that I've personally seen it, but I think there's the potential.
Now, I've known your mother long enough that when I called her after a nomination, the first thing she did was yell at me.
She doesn't yell.
Not calling fast enough. And I have a lot of respect for her. I think she's a great lawyer and she's gonna be a great judge, and she knows I'm gonna vote for her. But I had to ask her a few questions anyway, to put her on the spot. I'll vote for you next week. Thank you.
Council Frye.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Council Kenny is a big fan of yours. He talked to me about you early on. So that goes a long way with me. As somebody who spent 30 years in law enforcement, I thank you for your service as a DA and with the DEA. So I read everything that you wrote, and it sounds like you do a whole lot there with 500 employees that you're trying to manage under your span of control there. I do agree with Council Kennedy to his last point about the restraining orders. I had a case a few months back, and the person I voted for, one of the ones I wish I would like to take that vote back. But he continued restraining order for an additional year when nothing happened during the first year of the restraining order. And the only thing of violence happened 20 years before. So there's no imminency here. So this guy can't carry a gun, can't do his job as a security officer, can't see his child. It's crazy with some of these, you know, judges that do with restraining orders, ruining people's lives with no basis for it whatsoever. Now, you go, oh, take it to the appeals court, right? You know, so somebody's gonna fork up $15,000 to go to the appeals court or restraining order. But really cripple this guy, who's an outstanding citizen, owns a construction company, does security stuff on the side. So I just ask you to keep it in mind. The ramifications of some of these things are just, you know, I think out of control. I agree with Councilor Kennedy, a lot of them are used in divorce cases, as you know, for collateral. I like the point that you said that you like to sit in the area, because I'm a huge fan. The governor's lawyers about this all the time, about trying to get judges made from my own district, where you know the community and you know what works and what doesn't work, and you have a good sense of you know, things on the pulse of the community. So I really like that a lot. So I'm not gonna ask you any questions. I'm gonna vote for you next week.
Thank you.
Good luck. You're gonna be a great judge.
Thank you. Thank you for all the time that you afforded me, and you are in the Hall of Fame for the Belgian waffle. I am just so impressed with what you've done and with your life, but I want to thank your mother, because your mother, you went through hardships, but your mother, doubly. And I lost a daughter to cancer this year, so I know your loss. And no one can understand it unless they walk through his shoes, so I understand. So everybody's walking out of it. I asked if they would stay for the whole. I can't do anything about it, but I do want to say that I have been elected 25 years and I have never seen anyone with your background, with your life experience, and the compassion you bring to this job. You have gone beyond the positions that you have held. And I love the idea that you have so much criminal experience. And in these times, we really need that on the court. Do you think that there's racial discrimination in the court?
I wouldn't deny that there is. I personally haven't seen it, but I think about it often if I was to be confirmed. And I think there's tools that I would use to make sure that if there is, I don't contribute to it.
Well, in my 25 years, there is. And you know what the hardest thing is? I don't have a crystal ball. So if somebody can sit there and act like Mother Teresa, and I don't know what they're going to do. And that's the hardest thing, when I find out what they really are about. And I've been very involved in going to prisons for commutations There are Black men who are wrongly sentenced and get life in prison without parole. And that to me, it's just so incredible that one of the people that I advocated for commutation, he was 20 years old and never in trouble in his life. And he was out with his 26-year-old friend. And his friend said, we're gonna stop at this house. And when they went in that house, his friend, he told him to stay in this room. There were girls smoking marijuana. He says, keep them in that room. So he stayed in that room. His friend was in another part of the house and stabbed to death the owner over drugs. William didn't even know. He didn't even know when he left that house that that's what his friend did. And he got life in prison without parole. Where's the fairness? Where's the justice? And his friend got out in 11 years. And he was 33 years before, thank God, he got a commutation. But there are so many there that I want to identify who they are so we can help them, you know? And that's the thing. And I just lost an election after 25 years. And he called me. He called and he said, you'll always be my governor's counselor. That meant everything to me, you know? So I'm just saying that there's a lot of prejudice in the court. And I wish we could have a lie detector before they take their oath, but that's not possible. But I'm impressed by how you have taken cases and gone beyond that. And we know prescriptions, what's happening now, and it's so egregious. But you went beyond that because there was a what was it? What was it called? A prescription program. But you went further to find. I'm not going to say it. You tell us what you did.
Are you referring to the litigation up in New Hampshire?
Yes.
Yeah, so my time at DEA, a lot of what we do is regulating doctors and pharmacies. And I cover all of New England. So some of the states allow us to obtain that information by administrative subpoena or just by an email to the appropriate authorities. And there's case law across the country allowing DEA's authority under an administrative subpoena. And in New Hampshire, they wanted a search warrant. So I researched the litigation across the country and I presented the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Hampshire with our argument that we should be able to get this information by subpoena and not grand jury. And they found a case and actually litigated it, and it went all the way up to the appeals court. And now in New Hampshire, we can use an administrative subpoena for that information, which is a very, very important tool for DEA to be able to accomplish its mission.
And you know, we need someone like you that is not afraid, because if we have people that have had just civil cases, I believe they're timid to really make the right judgment or the sentence that they deserve because they're afraid. They've never been involved as an attorney. And that's what I've seen in my, being here for 25 years. But you've had horrendous cases. Tell us about the two brothers that were killed, was involved in, I think it was, where was it? Lowell, was it Lowell?
Yeah, so that was it was a home invasion, robbery, where the two brothers were shot and killed. There were 5 co-defendants. I tried 3 of them together, and then 1 co-defendant separately, and then 1 cooperated. And they were difficult cases. That family was, we spent a lot of time together litigating that case, but in the end, two of the 5 people were convicted.
What happens to the children of these people who, who get involved and go to prison? I mean, what do we do for those children? Are we putting them in good foster homes, or what do you see in your practice?
So I don't have any experience with that. I think, you know, we rely on the state authorities to find an appropriate placement. I don't have a lot of experience in that area.
But no, as I said, you know, at meeting with you and you bring life experience that other people haven't. And I just think it's remarkable. And I did mention to you that I had a friend that went through the same experience as you. And she became a teacher with special needs, and she had her daughter. And her daughter is a doctor and has twin girls. So, I mean, that is the rare. And I just admire you so much. It would have been so easy to take another path and you didn't. And I admire you. I admire your mother for all that she went through too. And you wouldn't be the person you are if it wasn't for your mother, that she was your role model, you know. But you know, it was such an honor to meet with you. I feel like I know your family, your son and everyone. It's just great. But so what do you see as what changes do you believe have to be taken in the district court?
I think with the caveat that I haven't been there in a little while, I think some of the changes that need to be made are, you know, we've heard today having litigants come in for routine matters that maybe we can continue without their presence there. I would like to see, you know, the court be more efficient so that time can be spent where it needs to be, either on, you know, motions or trials or dispositions where we need to really look at what's going on behind the person. I think the court, the SJC recently came out with the substance use disorder and mental health conditions standards about a year ago now. I think that hadn't been updated since the late 90s. And I think that update is very helpful and brings the district court or all the courts into the forefront of what's going on. So I have a lot of ideas, but obviously I haven't been there, so exactly what needs to be done.
So you did apply before.
Yes.
In retrospect, do you think, let me see, was it 7 years of the first time?
So my first application was in 2017, so yes.
Okay, what have you learned since then that you feel now I'm really ready? You're probably ready then. I mean, your experience, you know.
It was, you know, I started with the DEA in 2015. And my goal honestly there has been to bolster my civil experience. You know, when I went to DEA, I thought it was going to be mostly criminal law search warrants, but I've done a lot of administrative work at DEA, personnel issues, civil litigation support, a lot of regulatory matters and interpreting regulations. So I feel like I've bolstered my administrative and civil experience. So I think that's what's different now.
And you know, I've always looked the life experience that you bring to the court, and I have seen people that don't have life experience who've never, you know, done anything pro bono, never, you know, did for people. And I noticed when we asked the question in your questionnaire, what are the most important qualities in a judge? And your first one was fairness. And that says it all, you know. But I could go through. You have so many cases, and I really enjoyed meeting with you and all the time that you afforded me. And I'm so glad I felt I knew them before I met them, and I'm so glad they all were able to come. But I will be next week, hopefully. The Lieutenant Governor calls for the public assembly, and I will put your name in nomination, and we will vote for your appointment. So hopefully that will be a nice Thanksgiving gift. But so I'm going to adjourn now, and I thank you all for coming. This was one of the most rewarding positions that I have voted on. And I wish you all good luck, really. And I will adjourn.